Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Why should we feel good to be Muslims? Uh, that that's how we should feel is that the religion that we follow, even though not by choice to begin with, but hopefully now that's what the case is, or we are in the process of feeling comfortable with it. This religion, if you look at its teachings, it emphasizes following human morality, universal morality. Its teachings are based completely on universal morality. So, what it is telling us to do is what every human being knows already or has the potential of knowing it. Nothing new, nothing strange, nothing weird has been given to us to be understood or followed. I mentioned it in my second presentation that God's religion, deen, is comprised of two components: Al Kitab, the law, and Al Hikmah, which in turn is comprised of two components: morality and beliefs. Beliefs support morality. We believe in God apart from other reasons that I've already mentioned, also because of the fact that belief in God answers this important question as to why is it that all humans share the same morality? It's because we've all been created by the same one God. Belief in hereafter supports the understanding of morality because it provides us with a rationale, the reason why humans have been given this morality which guides them from inside, even though it's difficult to follow in many cases. The reason why it has been given to us is that there's going to be another life where we will be held accountable for our response to our morality. And of course, belief in prophets is the belief that helps in confirming all these realities and connections. Al Kitab, the law, as we shall see later in more detail, are the verdicts of the Almighty in some of those important aspects of human morality where humans tend to get confused. They are in a conflict and they needed some higher authority to let them know as to what is the right answer in this situation of conflict and disagreement. What I'm trying to say is, if you look at the important components of religion, Al Kitab, Al Hikmah, the law, universal morality, or beliefs, they are all primarily based on morality. Either they are providing a support system to it or providing answers to some difficult questions which otherwise humans would always be at a loss to understand. You look at the book that is presenting this religion, and it is mentioning az-zikr as one of its names. The Quran, in its famous verse 9 of chapter 15, Surah Al-Hijr, where it promises that the Quran is going to be fully preserved and not going to be allowed to be tampered with and altered later. It mentions, Inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. Indeed, it is we who have revealed this az-zikr, reminder, and we shall ensure its complete preservation. The Quran has been described as az-zikr, a reminder, because it reminds humans about the reality of the moral understanding, the moral appreciation that they already have. We know what is morally good from what is bad, and the Quran has only come to remind us about it. It doesn't tell us anything new and strange. Why does it need to remind us? Well, because we tend to forget. Why do we tend to forget? Uh, because As the Almighty designed this life to be a trial, He also gave us freedom and liberty on the one hand, and made this world glamorous and attractive on the other. It is this glamour of this world, the worldly life, and the temptations that it has that cause humans to be swayed, drawn away from acting upon and following the morality that they have. So, quite often, it so happens that although we know that telling the truth is what the right way is, we we don't do it because making false statements bring us immediate rewards. So, it's the immediate temptation of one reward or another that causes humans to be drawn away from doing what is otherwise morally correct. And the Almighty has sent down His message to remind humans that this morality is what the Almighty desires us to follow. It's from Him. And there is going to come a day when morality is going to be the basis on which humans are going to be held accountable. So it's all based on morality. Now, a few questions. One important question is, if that's what the case is, then why is it that humans seem to be different in morality? I mean, I am living in the Eastern world, and as we move to the Western world, what we find is that it's a completely different world. The difference probably has now been lessened because of the improvement in means of communication. Now we are living in a world where it is as if we are living in the same place because we see the pictures so quite so often of the other side of the world. But not very long ago, when one would move from one part of the world to another, one would go through the experience of cultural shock. You know, a completely different world. Um, so why is it that if all humans have the same morality, the same basic inner understanding of what is right from what is wrong, they still they still tend to be um, different from each other in a marked way? Well, there are two basic reasons why it is so. Number one, even though the basic inclination instincts of morality are the same, different societies have adopted different ways of going about following the moral principles. For example, helping out the poor is a moral principle. I mean, we all humans know from inside that if we have been given resources more than what we need, and we find around us people who are poor and in need of those resources, it's our moral obligation that we share some part of our wealth with those who are deprived. This is acknowledged all across the world. However, in the Western world, what we find is that they have been able to devise ways of going about it indirectly. Uh, they have their own states which impose heavy taxes, and the revenue that is generated as a consequence is distributed amongst those who are less privileged. They have been able to come up with NGOs, non-governmental organizations, which specialize in identifying people who are in need and helping them out one way or the other. People contribute their funds in order to help out the poor with that motivation at the back of their minds, but they don't normally go directly to people who are in need, but they go to them indirectly. In the Eastern world, although things are changing, the pattern is different, and poor people are contacted directly by and large. So it's basically the same moral principle which is underway, being is functioning, but the manner it's being done is different. The other reason why there are marked huge differences in the way societies approach morality is that although morality is universal, the Almighty has decided, in order for this life to be a trial, that if we go against our moral instincts, we can do it. And as I said, if we are doing wrong because of the temptations that are associated with going against what is morally desirable, uh, it's possible. People can tell lies, people can harm others. While they do it, from deep inside, there is a protestation. They feel bad about it. Their conscience pricks. However, this facility is not available forever. If humans continue to ignore the voice of their conscience, this voice gets weaker and weaker. And there comes a point in time when it completely disappears. That is what is known as moral degeneration. So, moral degeneration is very much possible. Uh, we all have come up with the same moral understanding, common universal principles of morality. But with the passage of time, if we continue to ignore the expectations of morality, we may find that at some point in time, and in some cases, what is morally desirable may not appear desirable to an individual, and sometimes even to the entire society. Uh, a case in point, for example, in the West is uh, the interaction of the two genders and also the way they get dressed. Because of very strong, exaggerated emphasis on the ideal, the virtue of freedom, uh, the freedom that the West has been able to uh, embrace and discover, they've gone too far in enabling and allowing their people to follow it. As a result of it, what has happened is that they have gone beyond the acceptable limits that human nature has has imposed on them, and therefore the expectations of morality seem to visibly, very clearly getting violated, and as a consequence, there is clear obscenity, unnecessary interaction of the two genders in such a at such a scale that extramarital sex seems to become commonplace. Uh, Not that they, to begin with, thought of it to be something desirable. Um, it's something which still is considered to be undesirable. But because the Almighty has allowed humans this liberty, and in the Western society, this liberty has gone beyond the limits of acceptability. In this particular area, they've gone wrong. And as we can see, the system of family has gotten seriously disturbed. Come towards the eastern part of the world, not that they're doing any better in this area, but obviously, for various reasons, the information is not very uh, fully available. However, uh, what we find in our society, I'm talking about Pakistan, is that telling lies is not a problem. Uh, Taking and giving bribes is commonplace. Not that when people tell lies, uh, they are proud of it. Not that when they are bribing or taking bribes, uh, they announce that this is something which they are doing as a great uh, contribution to humanity. They all know that what they're doing is wrong, but there is this process of degeneration that has taken place. So, what I'm trying to say is that even though human morality on which God's religion is based is universal, if we find that it's not quite as universal when it comes to it being practiced, the reason could be either that morality is getting approached in one way or another, and these ways uh, are very different. Or in some cases of morality, some aspects of moral principles, humans have undergone degeneration, and therefore they no longer realize uh, that what they're doing is wrong. The next question: why are Muslims lagging behind in morality, generally speaking? Uh, let's face it, when it comes to many moral principles, we are not doing well. And what I'm trying to present to you is that our religion is based on morality. The entire set of teachings are asking us to be morally upright. Religion is justifying the fact that these moral instincts are from God, and that's what we are going to be accountable for. And yet, we Muslims seem to be lagging behind in following moral principles. One important reason why it's happening is that although morality was expected to be the most significant aspect of of religious teachings that we were expected to understand and follow, and although our faith and our law, Sharia, was expected to support morality, for it to be promoted, to be refined, to be strengthened still further. The fact of the matter is that both the law and, in many cases, our faith have done completely the otherwise. Let's take our belief system first. Belief in God, belief in life hereafter, and belief in prophets all support this understanding of morality. But the way we have our society has degenerated, it has so happened that we have taken our religion for granted. Uh, there has become there has been a popular understanding. There has emerged a popular feeling that Muslims are going to succeed in the hereafter simply because they are Muslims. Non-Muslims are doomed simply because they are non-Muslims. Now, this understanding is so absurd on the one hand, and is so destructive when it comes to one's attachment to morality, that it has played a very important role in causing Muslims to be uh, morally lagging behind the other nations, followers of other ideologies, simply because the faith that was meant for their morality to be supported, improved, refined, is playing a negative role. Uh, Not because that's what the faith is actually talking about, because of the incorrect understanding of faith. We look at the Sharia, the law. The law, as I'm going to speak in one of the later sessions, is nothing but a divine explanation of what the Almighty expects regarding certain matters of morality, where our understanding has can falter, can go wrong. Now, this is a law. It's very small as far as its list is concerned. The Almighty didn't want us to be burdened by being given a tall list of do's and don'ts. However, this law from the Almighty called Sharia was understood and interpreted by humans, by scholars. And there is a body of knowledge that has emerged, come about, called fiqh. jurisprudence. Now, unfortunately, this body of knowledge has expanded, and there are now volumes after volumes that have been written. There are libraries that now are full of books which talk about what is fiqh, what is the opinion of scholars regarding Islamic Sharia, and all that the scholars have said and opined has now become a part of the Sharia. The end result of it is that Muslims are now required to follow, in the name of Sharia, something which is so very difficult, so detailed, so complex that they are lost in it. And whatever energy that the Almighty provided them with to follow morality and God's religion naturally and properly, all of it is lost, is invested in understanding and following uh, fiqh in the name of Sharia. And therefore, you talk about morality, and people will not be interested because they have a false feeling and understanding that what they have gotten is God's religion, and they have been provided with God's religion in detail. They don't need anything else from anywhere. So, in other words, the Sharia that was expected to further support morality has actually done, in many cases, quite the otherwise. Why are non Muslims doing better in morality? Simply because they value, in many cases, the God given natural morality they have. God provided all humans with intellect. You use God's God given intellect properly and you will benefit from it. You don't use it, it's going to be to your own detriment. Likewise, the God given morality is what many non-Muslims value, and they practice it, they talk about it. There are subjects that are taught at the level of universities. You do your business administration, and one of the courses that is going to be offered to you is business ethics. So it's valued, and they do not have the baggage that the Muslims have, wherein they now have a long list of subjects which, although are in the name of religion, yet they are detrimental to the real spirit of religion, in that they are talking about such intricate, detailed, complex matters which have got nothing to do with the original religion, and they've got nothing to do with the basic ideal of morality. Now, if ever Muslims shall be able to restore the dominance of morality in their understanding of religion and in the manner they practice religion. And as and when, if ever, they will be able to do away with the unnecessary baggage of many of the details that have come to be a part of the body of knowledge called religion, which was only human understanding of it, and in many cases a faulty understanding at that. If they will be able to do away with it, they will become again morally and religiously strong. And if at all they'll be able to do it, they will also be able to, as a consequence, attract non Muslims towards God's religion. Because if they'll do it, they will come back to the pristine original understanding of God's pure religion, which is based on morality, which invites humans to understand, appreciate, and follow morality, which attracts all humans, provided if they are in their original pristine form, not degenerated into uh, into ways uh, which are different from what the Almighty designed them to be. So, an invitation to the Muslims to come back to their original religion and teachings is basically an invitation to look at the emphasis on morality in our religion. Once we are able to get back to the original understanding, what we will find is that our religion and our religious teachings are all based on universal human morality, about which this religion gives us some such details which humans badly need. And if we are going to be able to do it, we will do a great service to ourselves and to the Almighty's religion. At the moment, what we are doing is causing us and others to, in many cases, be drawn away from it. Now I am available for your comments and questions.
Thank you, Dr. Zahir. Before we start taking questions, I'd just like to request everybody that please ask questions that are related to the topic of this class, and also one question per person, and then let give everybody else a chance, and then if there's still more time left, then you can ask a second question. So now I'll open up. Go ahead and start asking your questions. Unmute your microphone and ask.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Khalid. My question is that if, as you mentioned, that the fiqh has changed some things in the Sharia and it has become so strict for us to follow, so what do you think is the solution to this problem?
The solution to the problem is that we understand our religion properly in the light of the original sources, and we confidently present it to Muslims, telling them that this is what God's religion is. This is its true face, its true form. What is being mentioned in the name of religion, in the name of fiqh, is not what God's religion is. We need to do it confidently. We need to do it politely. And once we are able to do it properly, we can hope that many people are going to understand what we are saying. But without knowing our religion ourselves properly.
Sorry to interrupt. Roshan Khan Saab, could you please mute your microphone?
Sorry.
Picture. His video should not be there. For some reason, I can see him. Right. So, we need to understand our religion, and we need to understand the arguments that support the understanding of pure religious presentation. And we must make sure that we are aware of the fact that when we let people know that what they are understanding is faulty, we need to be extra patient and polite in letting them know about it. Hopefully, if we do this task and go about doing it properly and consistently, people are gradually going to come close to the true understanding of our religion.
Dr. Khalid, who is going to do this?
I'm sorry, one question, please. Next person, if somebody has a question, please go ahead and start asking.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, what is the real meaning of tazkiyah nafs? Can you please explain this?
I mentioned in one of my earlier presentations, tazkiyah is actually comprised of two components. It's purification and it's refinement, progress. We humans have been provided with an potential, a tremendous ability to be morally and spiritually high, upright. We have been given with the ability to be morally upright at a very high level, good to fellow human beings, and we are also provided with the potential of coming close to God. Now, this potential of ours is what is challenged by the external environment and the inner inhibitions, inner problems that we have. Our ego, our base desires are what prevent us from making moral and spiritual progress. Tazkiya-e-nafs is basically, on the one hand, cleansing and purifying ourselves by getting rid of those moral contaminations that are there. And as a consequence of this process of purification, we then are able to make moral and spiritual progress. There's still some disturbance from somewhere. Some mic is still on.
Roshan, if you can please mute your microphone, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Roshan, I've already put as much Roshni on your
Okay.
question as I could.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions on Zoom? Some people have texted me some questions. If nobody has a question on Zoom, I'll ask those questions. Okay. So, sir.
Can I ask another question, or you want to do your
Yeah,
question?
I'll let you know, Rafia Saiba, if we have some time left, I'll definitely have you ask another question.
Thank you.
No problem. So, sir, one question is that, as you mentioned, that ethics is, the moral ethics is more universal. So, what's the need for prophets and books then, if moral ethics is universal?
As I said, that moral ethics is universal, yet, because human life was designed to be a trial, humans have been given liberty, freedom, and there are temptations in this life, there are challenges in this life which cause moral principles to not be quite as clear as they ought to be. So we are expected to not do quite a few things from a moral point of view. We all know about them, and yet not doing them becomes attractive because they're immediately rewarding. You know, our desires, they get gratified, and the end result is that humans make incorrect choices by leaning towards what is immoral. Now, this weakness in humans causes them to draw away from morality. And God's religion has come to let us know that the morality that we have been endowed with is from God. A. B. The reason why we need God's religion is that we be informed, why do we have this morality? Who has given it to us? What is the purpose? I've already mentioned the answer is God has given it to us. So we must take care of it. B, God has done it because He wants us to be tested so that He would choose from amongst us those people who have cared to take morality seriously so that they succeed in the next life. And God's religion is also needed, as I said, to clarify in some cases some of those complex, difficult questions which simple understanding of morality at times is not able to solve. And I'm going to talk about them, these questions, in a later session.
Thank you, sir. Another question, and I think you did an adequate job of explaining this, but I can see that, maybe youngsters, they can't really understand this difference very well. So they're asking if you can make some clarification between Sharia and fiqh. They're not very clear, as you explained. So
Sharia is God's law, which is based on morality. It's brief, it's clear, it's mentioned in the original sources of Islam. It's either mentioned in the Quran or it's there in the practice of the Sunnah. Uh, However, this law which, as I said, is very brief, uh, was understood by humans. And the way it was expressed, the way it was given by design, because it was brief, it left many questions unanswered. Why? A, because God wanted the law to be brief. Had all possible questions regarding the law been answered, it would have become elaborate, which is what God didn't want to see happening, because He didn't want to burden us with a law that would be too detailed for us to be able to handle. And the other reason why He allowed it to remain open and unanswered is that He wanted us to use our own intellect. He wanted us to be able to answer these questions on our own as and when they appear. Now, these questions, which are there uh, in the description of the law, were answered by scholars, quite understandably, uh, differently by different scholars. Now, unfortunately, what has happened is that this whole body of knowledge, which is not now comprised of those answers, is also taken by a large number of Muslims as Sharia as well. So while Sharia was something like, let's say, 10 to 20 points, it has now grown into thousands of different verdicts. And, each scholar who comes up with an understanding of his own is considered to be very much a part of the Almighty's divine uh, dictates, which is what has caused the whole understanding of God's religion to become very different from what it originally was.
So if I understand it correctly, would it be fair to say that the Sharia is more like constitution of a country and fiqh is more like laws that are based on that constitution, but they can vary over time, right? I mean, they can change in time and space depending
Uh,
upon.
the example, is useful, but not completely perfect. The reason is that within Sharia, we do also have practices. The practices that have been given to us in a very clear, straightforward manner. Like for instance, we pray. The prayer, the way it is to be done, is mentioned in Sharia, but it leaves many questions unanswered, and it gives flexibility to people to do it differently, uh, even though they're expected to follow one basic law, one basic approach. Now, this flexibility and this openness and the freedom given to humans to come up with their own answers has caused many answers to emerge. That's perfectly fine. That's not a big problem. The problem is that there are many Muslims who consider that the answers given by their own respective scholars, their favorite scholars, are the right answers, and they are very much a part of God's religion that has been provided to us to be followed.
Thank you, sir. That's great. Any other questions on Zoom? Okay, I'll give a chance again to Rafia Haja Saiba.
Um, the question I asked was that who was going to change these things in fiqh which have been misunderstood, which you've already explained. My other question is that all the prophets were Muslims. So if we accept that, then any Christian or Jew who believes in one God, in Tawheed, we would call him a Muslim?
Uh, Give me the liberty of not getting into this question. I will invite a Jew and a Christian to help him, her understand that the religion that you are followed is what we are also following. The only difference is that we have been given the final version of it. That is, we have the latest edition of the book whose earlier editions you were given. We invite you to consider this edition as well, because this too is from your God, and your books are leading you to accept it as well. I'm not going to force this understanding upon them, but I'm going to help them understand. Uh, I'm not going to get into the question as to whether they are Muslims or not, but I'm most certainly going to say that they're not kafirs, because a kafir is a person who rejects God's message knowingly, deliberately, arrogantly. I'm not even going to go into the debate of imagining as to whether they're going to be successful in the hereafter or not. That's God's prerogative. However, what I'll do is that I'll try to, as best as is possible for me, to help them understand uh, politely, wisely, that the message that we are following is the message that they should also follow. So we will coexist, we will talk to each other, we will have good relations with each other, and as and when opportunities they you know they show their head, they are there for us to avail. We will try to let them know. What I'm trying to what I'm trying to not allow is to have this feeling of complacence that everybody is okay in the way he or she is following religion. Uh, I don't have any right to blame others for what they're doing, but I do have a right to feel uncomfortable from inside that the people, most people of this world, do not know God's latest religion, the purest form of religion as yet. And as a Muslim, it's my obligation to let people know as much as is possible that the latest version is with us.
Thank you, Dr. Zahir. So it's kind of like we shouldn't have animosity towards anybody else, but in fact, feel the empathy to encourage them to understand our viewpoint, our religion. Is that kind of a good way to understand this?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I think I'll probably speak later as well. That is why it's so very important for us Muslims to make sure that we create an environment of dialogue. We create an atmosphere, an environment which is conducive for a free discussion, because it's only in that environment that we shall be able to let others know about our understanding. And in the process, we'll also be able to improve our understanding, refine our understanding about our own religion, and we'll also understand what they have got to say. So I think, uh, unlike what many of us Muslims are doing, that we are hampering the process of dialogue and discussion, we should promote it and let everybody be a part of this discussion so that we are able to let others know about our point of view. And hopefully, as a consequence, some people are going to appreciate and understand that after all, what we are saying is what is correct.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zahir. There's one question online and we have 1 minute left, so maybe you can quickly answer it. But what they're asking is fiqh what's responsible for creating divisions amongst Muslims?
I would say yes and no. Fiqh is responsible, but it's the attitude towards fiqh which is more responsible. I mean, the scholars did what they ought to have done. They obviously understood religion from their own peculiar background, their own understanding. That's what the task was. So I wouldn't blame them. But it was the attitude of the followers and the later people who thought about their own respective scholars as if they were perfect, and the ones who what they presented was the only understanding, correct version of religion. That's what has caused Muslims to become rigid, and as a consequence, they have become divided.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zaheer. That was a great explanation, and we're out of time. Thank you, everybody,
Thank you.
for joining us tonight. Inshallah, we'll see you again tomorrow evening. All right. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Allah Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.